The Menéndez family, a perfect facade. The image of perfection, a family that seemed to have it all. Smiles that masked the turmoil within. Beverly Hills, land of sunshine and dreams. A place where the wealthy and powerful reside, where every home tells a story of success and opulence. But behind the manicured lawns and sparkling pools, darkness festered. The pristine exteriors hid the secrets and lies that lay within. The Menéndez family, seemingly perfect, hid a sinister secret. A secret that would eventually unravel their lives and shock the world. Lyle, the older brother, charismatic and ambitious. He was the golden child, the one who was expected to achieve greatness and carry the family legacy forward. Erik, the younger, followed in Lyle's shadow, always trying to live up to the expectations set by his older brother and their demanding parents. Their parents, José and Kitty, had high hopes for their sons. They pushed them relentlessly. José, a successful businessman, and Kitty, a devoted mother, believed in hard work and discipline. Success was the only option. Failure was not tolerated. The pressure to excel was immense, and the boys felt it every day. But beneath the surface, resentment simmered. The pressure mounted. The boys felt trapped. Their parents controlled everything. Every aspect of their lives was scrutinized and managed. Money, education, their very lives. A toxic environment grew. The expectations were suffocating, and the boys began to feel isolated and alone. Lyle and Erik, once close, drifted apart. The bond they shared as children weakened under the strain of their parents' demands and the growing tension in the household. The weight of their parents' expectations became too much to bear. Something had to give. The pressure cooker that was their home life was about to explode, leading to a series of events that would change their lives forever. The facade of a perfect family began to crack. The forced smiles at family gatherings, the underlying tension that no one spoke of, it all started to become too obvious to ignore. Lyle and Erik retreated into their own worlds, each dealing with the pressure in their own way. The isolation grew, and so did their desperation. José and Kitty remained oblivious to the storm brewing within their own home. They continued to push their sons, believing that they were doing what was best for them. But Lyle and Erik had reached their breaking point. They began to plot, to think of ways to escape the suffocating grip of their parents. Desperation led them down a dark path. The events that followed would shock the nation. The perfect facade of the Menéndez family was shattered, revealing the darkness that had been festering beneath the surface for years. The trial of Lyle and Erik Menéndez became a media sensation. The world watched as the details of their lives were laid bare, and the truth about the Menéndez family was finally revealed. The courtroom was filled with emotional testimonies and dramatic moments. The brothers' defense painted a picture of a life filled with abuse and control, a life that led them to commit the unthinkable. The Menéndez family, once seen as the epitome of success and happiness, was now viewed through a different lens. The perfect facade had crumbled, revealing the tragic reality beneath. August 20th, 1989. A night of terror. The date would forever be etched in infamy, a night that would haunt the memories of those who lived through it and those who heard the tale. The air was thick with an unsettling calm, a prelude to the chaos that was about to unfold. The night air hung heavy and still. It was as if the world itself was holding its breath, anticipating the horror that was about to be unleashed. The silence was deafening, amplifying every creak and whisper of the night. Inside the Menéndez mansion, evil stirred. Gunshots shattered the silence. The once peaceful abode was now a scene of unimaginable violence. The echoes of the gunfire reverberated through the halls, a grim symphony of destruction. José Menéndez, caught off guard, didn't stand a chance. His life was snuffed out in an instant, leaving behind a legacy of fear and confusion. The shock of the attack was written all over his face, a testament to the brutality of the act. Kitty, screaming, tried to flee. More gunshots. Silence fell again. Her desperate cries for help were cut short, leaving an eerie stillness in their wake. The mansion, once filled with laughter and life, was now a tomb of silence and death. The smell of gunpowder filled the air. It was a pungent reminder of the violence that had just occurred, a scent that would linger long after the smoke had cleared. The acrid smell mixed with the metallic scent of blood, creating a nauseating atmosphere. Blood stained the pristine white carpet. The stark contrast between the bright red and the pure white was a gruesome sight. a visual representation of the innocence lost that night. The carpet, once a symbol of luxury, was now a canvas of horror. Lyle and Erik, their faces pale, stood amidst the carnage. The reality of their actions was sinking in, their expressions a mix of shock, fear, and a twisted sense of relief. They had done the unthinkable, and now they had to face the consequences. Their parents, the source of their pain, were gone. The bodies lay lifeless on the floor, a grim reminder of the finality of death. The brothers had freed themselves from their tormentors, but at what cost? They had taken matters into their own hands. Panic set in. The gravity of their actions was overwhelming, and the fear of getting caught was palpable. They had crossed a line and there was no turning back. They had to cover their tracks. Every trace of their crime had to be erased, every piece of evidence destroyed. The frantic cleanup was a race against time, a desperate attempt to rewrite the narrative of that night. They disposed of the evidence. They concocted a story. The brothers knew that their survival depended on their ability to deceive. They burned documents, hid items, and rehearsed their alibi, each step a calculated move in their plan to evade justice. They were victims, they would say. The story they crafted was one of innocence and fear, a tale designed to elicit sympathy and divert suspicion. They played their roles to perfection, hoping that their performance would be convincing enough to save them from the consequences of their actions. Whispers and doubts. The investigation begins. News of the murder spread like wildfire. The community, shocked and horrified, demanded answers. The police launched an investigation. Lyle and Erik, grief-stricken, told their story. They were out for the evening, they claimed, returned home to a nightmare. But something didn't add up. Their stories were inconsistent, their grief unconvincing. Whispers began. Rumors circulated. The police suspected the brothers, but they needed proof. The investigation intensified. They dug deeper into the family's past. They uncovered a history of abuse. Dark secrets began to emerge. Unraveling the truth. The weight of evidence. Months passed. The investigation continued. The police, relentless, followed every lead. They uncovered financial irregularities. Lyle and Erik were spending lavishly. New cars, expensive watches, trips abroad. They seemed unfazed by their parents' deaths. Suspicions grew stronger. Then, a breakthrough. A witness came forward. Dr. Jerome Oziel, a psychologist, had treated the brothers. He revealed chilling confessions. Lyle and Erik had admitted to the murders. The police had their evidence. The net was closing in. In the court of law, a battle of narratives. The trial of Lyle and Erik Menéndez captivated the nation. It was a case that gripped the public's imagination, drawing intense media coverage and sparking heated debates across the country. The Menéndez brothers were accused of the brutal murder of their wealthy parents, José and Kitty Menéndez, in their Beverly Hills mansion. The courtroom became a stage. Every day, the drama unfolded like a high-stakes theater production, with the judge, jury, and attorneys playing their parts in this real-life drama. The public watched with bated breath, eager to see how the story would unfold. The prosecution painted a picture of greed and cold-blooded murder. They argued that Lyle and Erik killed their parents to inherit their fortune, presenting evidence of the brothers' lavish spending in the weeks following the murders. The defense, however, argued abuse. They claimed that the brothers had endured years of sexual, emotional, and psychological abuse at the hands of their father, and that the murders were an act of desperation and self-defense. Lyle and Erik, they claimed, were victims driven to the brink. The defense painted a harrowing picture of the brothers' childhood, filled with fear and torment. They described a household where the boys were subjected to unimaginable horrors and argued that the murders were the only way they could escape their father's abuse. The brothers took the stand. In a rare move, both Lyle and Erik testified in their own defense, recounting their experiences in vivid detail. Their testimony was emotional and raw as they described the abuse they had suffered and the fear that had driven them to commit such a heinous act. They poured out their hearts. The courtroom was silent as the brothers spoke, their voices filled with pain and anguish. They recounted incidents of sexual abuse, psychological torture, and the constant fear of their father's wrath. Their testimony was a powerful and emotional plea for understanding and compassion. They spoke of years of torment, sexual abuse, psychological torture. The jury listened intently. The jurors were faced with the difficult task of determining the truth amidst the conflicting narratives. They had to weigh the brothers' emotional testimony against the prosecution's evidence of premeditation and greed. Who was telling the truth? The courtroom was divided. The tension was palpable. Spectators and jurors alike were torn between sympathy for the brothers' plight and the horror of their actions. The case sparked a national conversation about abuse, self-defense, and the limits of the law. The case hinged on one question: was it murder or self-defense? The jury's verdict would have far-reaching implications, not only for the Menéndez brothers, but for the broader societal understanding of abuse and justice. The nation waited with bated breath for the final outcome, knowing that whatever the decision, it would be a landmark moment in legal history. The price of justice, verdict, and sentencing. After months of testimony and deliberation, the jury reached a verdict: deadlocked, mistrial. The nation was stunned. The prosecution, undeterred, announced they would retry the case. The second trial was a media frenzy. The world watched as the brothers' fate hung in the balance. This time the jury reached a decision: guilty, first-degree murder. Lyle and Erik Menéndez were sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Justice, it seemed, had been served. But the controversy was far from over.